Hey guys, everybody. I am going to have another try at doing a VR in our series. Jennifer, hi there. And everybody else who's watching this at some point or other. I am not completely happy with my setup here for some reason. I'm slightly too close to the camera for my own comfort because I like to have a bit more, you know, room to wriggle, so to speak. So it's been a couple of days since I watched your video, Jennifer, and as you can tell, probably or could tell in the past week, I haven't been as immediate as I have been for a while because I was really tired and all sorts of, all the emotional changes and upheavals and things that happened just took time to sort out. And also physically. Basically, I just had to get rid of, because one of the very obvious things to me about the whole Shakti business is that it involves enormous amounts of detoxing, endless and recurring and permanent detoxing business going on. So, for example, we had several nice walks on the beach and all that, and afterwards I was home and it rained and stormed, and it's still raining and storming. It's got up to here for now. I will be right back. Yes, there we are again. Had to get me another cup of tea. What I would do without endless supply of tea, I don't know. So what happens is I stay indoors too much. I just don't get enough exercise. And yesterday I went to my friend's house who's got I don't know how you call that, a sauna cabin in her house, in one of her rooms. And it's really great. I've always enjoyed the sauna as it, for, the duration of being at her place then. And afterwards I find that it's really very, the heat is just a bit much. It's a bit on the much side for me. And I just get very, I don't know. I actually need to do that type of thing in the summertime, which is really weird, or maybe in springtime or when it's 20 degrees outside and I can just go out and walk or bike, any of those. So that I get the exercise and I actually get rid of the complete set of toxins that the sauna has brought up. So that's and what that does, if I don't do that, I get a very heavy head and I can meditate until I'm blue in the face and nothing really changes all that much. Although, on the other hand, my friend needed a bit of psychological support, and which I could give to her to some extent anyway. And I also find then, of course, that I am picking up all sorts of emotions from her. I am triggered. I am being, wow, there's the sun. In case you hadn't noticed, it's going to be like this, in and out the whole time, because the clouds are passing over this country and everything's just in movement constantly. So what happens is that if I meditate, I actually do manage to extricate some of the, triggering, energetic, I don't know what they are really, just fields, business stuff going on that it just quite, I find it very oppressive. She is a teacher at the university in the information technology business in Eindhoven, and she has had, I don't know how many years by now, where constantly people are being let go and the remaining people have to see about the rest of the work getting done between them. And it's been getting harder all for years now. And I keep hearing her complain about how much work it is and how tough it is and all the rest of it. And she's such a worker. She just keeps at it and she keeps going on. I really have to praise her courage. I mean, yeah, what else can I say? And I had brought a deck and we used her own deck in order, her Osho Zen that she just got a couple of weeks ago. And we managed, in the end, she was obviously feeling better by the time I went. So I went back home. So I must have done some good in there. And it wasn't like I was completely depressed afterwards from supporting her or giving her the support that she needed or could use. It's just that in combination with everything else. And that's really, it tends to weigh me down rather, because I don't get enough sunshine. I don't get to go outside yet, although I can see that my little plum tree in the back garden is in blossom. I can't show it to you right now because then my whole setup is gonna get screwed, so let's just leave it. But it's full of little white flowers, and it's just too pretty for words out there in the brave, in the blizzard. Well, it's not really a blizzard, it's just blowing. Everything's just constantly eek and dancing around. Equinoctial gales, I suppose. We're nearly in at the equinox, aren't we? All this lengthy intro, as per usual, I could say. I have got a couple of points noted down in my little notebook that I use for our conversation processes, Jennifer. Yes, the first thing I find here is holding space for the Shakti, was what you said in your recent response, and I love that. I think that's actually one of the best approaches to that. You can just, because it's a term that we've gotten used to, right? We know what that means. To hold space for something is just to be there and not interfere or not want anything, and then let it do what it has to do. So that's perfect. That's beautiful. I've got a couple of more other remarks here, things that struck me about the I don't know, you should have one word to say to name a concept, right? Where in fact what I'm trying to get at here is the process where we have an illness, even a lengthy one, or we need surgery, or what, like you have described, and we are actually doing that sort of on behalf of a process that involves either our genes or our ancestors or both. It's like, how do you call that? I had found the other word other than redress. It has to do with redress, with rehabilitation, let's call it that, of a sense of physical and personal integrity that comes at this generation, at our generation, whereas it seems like we are working in one way or another on behalf of other people as well. Our ancestors are, especially the women in your case. This whole thing, this ancestor rehabilitating through personal process type, you'd almost want an abbreviation for that, wouldn't you? Don't know, never mind. I'm already lost about that. I'm reminded of the whole vanished twin thing that my husband has gone through and still sometimes has to cope with. We still sometimes we just all of a sudden, like last week with the new moon, we ran into this whole, it's like there's a very deeply buried, hidden default setting for him that has to do with vanished twin business, and he's learning, he's managing to get a hold of it, and he goes off and writes poetry. So excellent, right? He's written another lengthy expressive poem last night, and I think it's just wonderful the way he manages to finally, find the words. Better late than never, Reason why I am linking this to the ancestor rehabilitation process thing is that we were very unsure when we had gone through the whole, establishing whether he could have had a vanished twin thing in 2017. We were very unsure because he was born in 1966, which is way before anybody started doing the imaging, where you can see actually what's happening in the womb of the mother. So he had no way of really and everybody's of course attacking him, that you can't tell and you better not think about it, etc. You can't tell, ergo, you're not supposed to think about it. Patriarchy. I'm reading Marilyn French, so I'm all in between parentheses a bit. I don't want to go on about Marilyn French. I think she's great, but it's a bit of a tough read. The thing is, I think about a year and a half after we'd sort of made out that it's going to be that way for him, this is a thing for him, we found out that my cousin, she's his brother's daughter, had actually had a miscarriage of twins. And it's gone all hush-hush, and so I wasn't there, or I wasn't involved. And it's people that we don't see very often because they live on the other side of the country and everybody's very busy the whole time. And I actually managed to sit on the couch with her, like an X time afterwards. And I told her about my husband's vanished twin thing and explained, this is how it works. And you have these characteristics, psychological and other characteristics that you can look at. And if you just, check them for yourself and you have more than half of them are, you're matching to them, then you have a fair chance that this is actually your situation. And she went, oh my gosh, I'm actually relieved to hear about this because I almost had twins and I had asked everybody around and nobody knew anything about there being any twins in the family. So to her it was like a little moment where everything sort of came together, and so that was cool. And not only this, after I suppose it was also in 2018, so late 2018 somewhere, I was back into my family tree research for a while, which is something I tend to do in November, December, when I really can't stand the dark anymore. I just have to, start digging at things in the internet, which is cool. And we have loads and loads of archives that have been scanned, so you can actually look up a lot of the family tree business about people who actual documents, actual birth certificates, actual neatly, beautifully pen and ink handwritten documents are all online. Not all, but there are many are online. And I found that, let me think, my husband's great-grandfather had a twin brother who died a month or so after they were born. So this is like late 1800 somethings. And I went like, whoa, that's something that nobody's ever told us about. Because, of course, in those days, this was like before the First World War, people had other things to worry about. And kids died all the time. And nobody had any clues that this might be relevant. But it makes, long story short, it makes for 3 sets of twins where before there were none, or only my little cousin's babies that didn't get to be born. So there's a lot more going on. Also in our genes, in our bodies, we are much more linked. That's basically my message at this, as far as this is concerned. And if I say that we are so much more linked to each other in families, then we can really, then I would be able to tell, because I can see that I have my father's, type of face, body structure, bone structure and all that, color of eyes, color of hair, mostly my dad. My behavioral style will be slightly more towards what my mum used to be like, because of course I lived with her for ages and ever and on. So I copied a lot of my behavior, apart from the hand waving, which is all mine, I think. But for example, my endless longings as growing up to be a nomad and a gypsy I can really strongly relate to the fact that my family on my dad's side, like 4 or 5 generations ago, were circus people, which we didn't really know anything about and hadn't had any experience with, and had 0.0 experience with any of that, except in my own heart. And I just feel like, gypsy caravans, horses, and fireplace outside, and a large kettle of, goulash and all that type of stuff. Music, gypsy, Hungarian, Romanian gypsy music just goes straight into my bones. I don't know. There is a lot more going on. And I was really surprised because I have never, before, when I was a kid, when I grew up, I didn't have, my mother was very much against connecting with family because it meant problems for her and not being accepted the way how she was. And so she kept everybody away as much as possible. And I grew up almost without any relations. So all these little, bits and pieces, to me, they're quite striking. And I find it, because I suppose when you grow up normally, like I think you have, Jennifer, with your family, and you have a sister. You have a sister. That's cool. Everybody's so much in each other's zone of influence the whole time that you're not even aware of it because it's normal. That's your normal. And I'm imagining that might actually sort of camouflage other levels of connection that are actually there and that are being expressed in all sorts of different ways. But it would take you'd have to take a really close look at those aspects and see, for example, first thing that comes to mind, whether you share any other personal, emotional, attitude-wise, behavior-wise, I don't know, characteristics with those relatives that you mentioned who also had hysterectomies. So, I don't know, maybe that's not nice territory. I don't know. You make that out, okay? So, but that's the thing with the twins, being there, unseen, I find that really striking and also quite interesting. And I suppose it's kind of the way it works with bodies. Bodies are related to each other, and there's all this information that's encoded in us in a way. That's one way of putting it. Okay. I have a couple of other rather larger issues and themes, not issues with you, don't worry, themes that I am going to try and get at. Walking barefoot, definitely. Oh yeah, walking barefoot and earthing and grounding and those things, that's really a separate type of subject that I want to go into, so maybe I can do that in a bit. Okay, I was laughing about you going down into the earth and reprimanding the Shakti energy to behave itself. That's typical. That's just Jennifer. Yeah. It'll listen to you, but you have the choice whether to work with it, to what extent. As long as you're communicating, because that's what you need, okay? You need it, and it needs you, and you need each other. So if you can communicate with each other, then that takes years. The whole thing has taken me 20 years to get to whatever level I have at the moment of being capable of working with these things. And it's just something that keeps fascinating me. It keeps doing me good. It helps a lot to work with the Shakti. And I suppose everybody does it in his or her own way. So now, bear with, once more, I'm going to pause a bit because my cat has managed to keep the door open and there's a hell of a draft. Back in a bit. Jawel. All right. So the earthing and grounding business, I think, would be most important for me to talk to you about at the moment, because that's just one of the knitting needles that fell on the floor. Nah, it's all good. No, doesn't matter. Because I would qualify as earthing the electromagnetic phenomenon. And that means that if I wear a woolen pullover, for example, and I get sparks in my hair, that is friction, as far as I know, that has caused an electromagnetic charge to build up in one part or another of me, and it'll discharge at some point. That type of thing can happen with the whole of the body. And when you're talking about walking barefoot outside or sitting outside barefoot with your feet on the actual earth like that, what that will certainly do is siphon off or discharge the excess electromagnetic charge that we do build up. And that is basically, that can exist at all sorts of levels of how deep in the body the charge is, I think. I haven't really thought about that type of idea yet. But I do know that whenever I get headaches, most of that is actually because of this electromagnetic overchargedness. It's like there's just too much electricity. And I have made a video at one point about Tai Chi exercises that I sometimes do. I tend to forget about them until I really need them. And there is an exercise, I'll look it up and stick the link in the information down below in the description, because I find that extraordinarily helpful for me in the case of a headache. Because then you're not talking about an electromagnetic charge so much anymore. You're talking about what the Chinese call bin qi, which is a negative charge in the energetic systems in the body, in the meridians, and you can actually evacuate those. You can release those by doing the exercise in the in the link that I will put down. I'm not going to go into too much detail because this is all sort of related to the earthing process, the aspects that relate to earthing, and what I would say involuntary, basically sides of trying to get rid of the disharmony between the body and the planet. Yes, so it doesn't really have all that much to do with personal growth, really. They are really short-term things that are good for you. They're healthy, and there are all sorts of earthing techniques and tactics, and I have basically only really been working with minerals and gemstones for that type of thing, crystals. There are a number of crystals that have an earthing or grounding effect, where I use the term grounding for a voluntary approach. Grounding yourself, okay? That's how I would distinguish amongst those things, and I think it's important to make the distinction because you also like that type of thing. We like to know exactly where we are and what it is that we're doing, okay? So there are quite a number of stones and rocks and bricks and bits that you can use. Speaking of bricks, I made at some point, I suppose in 2017, I made witch's powder using brick ground up in the mortar, combined with resins and sage and mugwort and charcoal from the fireplace, and salt and black pepper and a couple of things like that, things of that order, more or less. But the bricks and the salt and the charcoal are the most important ingredients, and you can insert the herbal and aromatic influences in that. And then you get this thing called witch's powder. It's apparently an old recipe. I just had somebody on the tube tell me about this, and I went off and did it. And I found it extraordinarily helpful. It's ridiculous, really. I want to show them to you, except that, hang on a sec. Okay, they're in here. Because I've got this bag full of witch's stuff which tends to come along. Yes, here we are. I made myself another nice container to carry my stuff around in, because I need my stuff wherever I go. So, this is the actual witch's powder. Brick, salt and charcoal with, herbs and stuff in. And it doesn't really, it smells like, yes, pleasant. It's because of the resins that are inside. What did I use? Myrrh and probably church incense type. But the straightforward type church incense. So just one type of grains, so not with gold bits in and black and red bits, none of the mixtures. You just have to go for this type of thing. I would use only the best. This is extraordinarily warming. It's like a little Shakti in a bottle, actually. And I wasn't really expecting him to say that, but now that it comes to me, I feel like, yeah, this is like Shakti in a bottle. And it does take what happens is that in the natural processes of life, there's always all sorts of little, basically electromagnetic, I suppose, barriers that come up in our anatomy, in our bodies, on all sorts of levels. There's always electromagnetic resistance going on somewhere, and this just melts it away instantly. I love this stuff. I've got a whole big pot of it, and I put this in a small container to carry with me. And in the bag, this in the pretty bag, isn't it pretty? Yeah, crochet work. I have to doodle. If I don't doodle, I'm dead. Okay, there's another one. This is beeswax with coconut oil that creates some kind of a smooshy substance, so it's less tough than beeswax by itself. And it contains, let me see, Palo Santo oil and a couple of other oils and rose attar. I bought interesting stuff online. Rose attar is great stuff. You just, gotta shop for that. Aromatics, I love me essential oils and all that. It's just totally. And it also contains the witch's powder. So these two go together. And Palo Santo oil, I find, is a whole different rabbit hole right there. Because I've been doing my own witchy grinding and murmuring, by the fireplace in the past couple of years, because I love it. Palo Santo oil, I would say, qualifies as a Shakti product as well, a Shakti quintessence almost. It only, I remember the first time I got a bottle, I suppose it was this bottle originally, with 5 ml of Palo Santo pure essential oil. I found that I had been using and working with essential oils for quite a while before that, and I found it incredibly difficult to make, to make some kind of use of the Palo Santo without it, if you just used one drop in a combination of a couple of other things, it would just overrule everything else. So I spent, a month or so investigating the problem and coming up with, some kind of a formula where I would keep adding ingredients, and I'm talking ginger, cinnamon, clove oil, all those type of things, okay? But lots more. I would keep adding them to a separate bottle, and in order to get, using my nose basically, get the Palo Santo force to spread out more, so that it wouldn't be just like a bullet entering the field. I wanted it to slow down basically. So this might be your kind of way of approaching the whole Shakti business, is to think of it that you have to make it work, put it to work with other, in other aspects, in other shops, on this side and on that side and over there. And then you get to work with the result of those processes. Might be an interesting way of looking at things. I was still talking about earthing and or grounding. All these things tend to be earthing in the sense that they give me a sense of comfort and warm me up and make me more available to myself and to others. And I let go of all the tensions and all the resistances that are, especially the physical ones. The friction type, the build-up of the charges and all that type of stuff. I was going to show you this one as well. This is another great earthing type stone, and it also goes off a bit into the grounding business, that this has also an effect on the mind. It is a septarian. I have another one right here somewhere. Everybody's got these septarian hearts, and this one is slightly milder, even though it's a lot larger than the other one, because it's got a lot of the yellow calcite in it, and this one has got almost no yellow calcite. So this is a tough cookie. But the combination of these three, that's what lives in this little pouch here, has instant effect for me, in the sense that it not only earths my energy field, or it takes care of the charges, but it also gives me a sense of grounding, not only in my body, but in myself as well. And that's the other half of this whole tale, of course, about earthing and grounding, is that you have to figure out, you have to kind of, as you go along, you kind of figure out, that's I think what the whole purpose is of this whole witchy business, is that you get to find out who you are, really. And you know who you are, even though there are no words for it, and there's no text, and you're not going to have a manual at the end of the day, I think. I hope. Because you'll always have to have some type of openness, and you can never determine what you're going to do tomorrow. So it's not about that. It's not about control. It is about knowledge and experiencing, and also about enjoying, and finding your joy is, I suppose, one of the best ways of looking at that kind of thing. So I just think that grounding oneself can also mean all sorts of other sides. There's a lot of sides to the whole grounding thing. The Shakti energy itself, and communicating with the Shakti in the way we've been attempting to do, or have succeeded to some extent, that is really very much in the heart and core of this earth line that I've already talked about quite a bit, where your root chakra is connected to the heart of the earth, and that becomes, with all the stuff that we've been doing to it, it becomes like this big bouquet almost of different types of energy, different types of consciousness, basically. And the Shakti itself is in the middle of it, and it is to some extent only one. It is you're adjusting to that wavelength. You are working with that part of it, with that aspect, really. And in the past week or so, when I was all over the place really emotionally, and I'd had several bits of challenges and things going on, I had realized that I had to take time to integrate the energies. And one of the things that mattered to me was getting, to a certain extent, getting rid of identifications that I was carrying around the whole time with victimization and feeling very bad and very weak and all that type of stuff, which just doesn't jive with the Shakti. The Shakti can't understand weakness because it is all strength. It is only power, really, in the sense not power over, but power in. I hope I'm making sense. The other thing I realized after a while was that it was almost like the Shakti itself was speaking to me, and it said, I created you, resistance and all. So I thought it was really cool. It was a really cool moment to have, because apparently the Shakti understands me way better than I understand it, and it is nothing in the bouquet or in the bundle of strands of energy is really not of the Shakti. It's just that the bands and the strands in the energy communicate different things. And when we're talking about gene energies and ancestor energies, all those are also in there. And the way our meridians function and the way our senses and our organs function, all the rest of it is really, it's all part of this immense big program that has been running since the day we were born, or before, of course. So even just physically. And so I'm really constantly very much in awe of how many levels there are and how much work it is to keep in mind that we actually, the basic thing I have to ask myself the whole time is, what level am I on? Am I on this level or am I on this level? And working with the white light is again a completely different level. And I suppose if you work with power animals and all that stuff, then you are again at a different level. And I don't mind seeing it as different levels. I don't care. You can call it levels of expression or whatever, whatever you like to look at. And as long as we, I suppose it's not really something that people talk about all that much, but it's quite important and quite essential that we, I don't know, for me it's essential to be aware that there are a lot of levels and that I am engaged and involved in all of them, whether I know it or not, whether I'm, whether it's aware and, comfortable or not. It tends to be, when it gets interesting, it tends to be uncomfortable at first, and then you have to, figure out how that works. So I want to, this is more or less what I had to say about the earthing and grounding business. I suppose grounding means basically bringing my awareness down, really, just because that's one thing that I keep seeing in people, like my friend yesterday or my husband or even myself, whenever I'm in that type of circumstances, when I deal with people out there, everybody's energy field is like way up here. Okay, it's not even connected to their bodies anymore. Everybody's just zipping around in a field that isn't necessarily connected to themselves anymore, or connected to anything that they really care about. And like my friend, she is so many times removed from her own core being that it hurts to bring her back to earth, to bring her, and it's possible to bring somebody else down to earth, to connect to their energy if they let you, and kind of make them, or make it available for them to slow down and integrate and be here, be on the floor again, instead of in the pinball operated craziness up there. So I suppose for many people, meditation is basically grounding in this sense. And if that's what it does for them, that's great, because it's extremely useful, and people need this the whole time. And many people don't do it at all, or don't do it enough. So I suppose it'll see a lot more practice in the near future. And that's just slowing down. It's basically undoing the pinball crazy and stepping away from that and allowing yourself to come into a level of vibration that is closer to the earth under your feet, but then again also to your core, to who you really are. So it's also almost Shakti work, really, but it doesn't have to go into the Shakti at all. It just can be, grounding can be, I can ground my hand. If I hold my hand like this, I can ground my hand. And my hand goes because there's always something that we need the earth. So, long story. Maybe this is helpful. I want to talk about the power animals, but that's a different story. So I'll put that up separately. Thank you, everybody, for being in my life. And see you soon. Bye-bye for now.